Senator Swazinski, I want to thank and salute all of you. Rather than talking a whole lot, I'll give you a quick update. But what I'd really love to do, since we have the opportunity, I'd love to hear what's on your minds. Any questions that you have, can be anything about Eric Paulson's ads or our strategy or anything that's on your mind. I'd love that. But just to let you know that I started this entire endeavor out of anxiety, and you well know that the anxiety we feel this very week is very palpable and very similar to the one how we felt the week after the election in 2016. And in no small part, that illuminates exactly why I'm doing this. But I got to tell you, I'm very hopeful and I'm optimistic, because despite that anxiety and despite the rancor and the divisiveness, I'm hopeful. I'm actually hopeful. I'm optimistic and hopeful because of rooms like this. People are participating, and we're awakening a thoughtful element of this entire country that is heretofore, in my estimation, been too quiet and been too disengaged. And I think it's fair to say, based on, I'm sure some of you in this room and thousands with whom I'm visiting in this district, people who have never cared before and never dedicated a time, a moment of thought, or consideration to participation. And if that is the outcome of these times and that last election and even this past week, even the work, Steve, that you've done in schools to inspire young people, when I'm seeing from 15-year-olds all the way to literally, and I mean this literally, 100-year-olds. I had a man not long ago come up to me and said, "You're the first Democrat I'm going to vote for since FDR's fourth term." That's when I knew we were making progress. And so I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. We need to flip 23 seats. This country needs a check on the executive branch. If there's something that Republicans and Democrats and independents and even libertarians agree on right now, it is that need for a check and balance on that branch. And the only way to achieve it is coming up in 32 days, and that's with 23 seats flipped in the House. And if we do so, I in fact just tweeted today about what I hope will be the first bill that our new class of members of Congress vote on. It should be H.R. 1, House Resolution number 1, which is a comprehensive ethics reform bill, campaign finance reform bill, and voter engagement bill. Now that is job one. If we don't address those three elements first, shame on us, and that's what I intend to try to inspire. So with that said, we are ahead in the polls, whether it's 10 points, 5 points, somewhere in between, or something less. That is, it's meaningless, because if anything, there are blessings and curses in being ahead in polls. And the biggest curse is complacency, which we can ill afford. So to the extent that any of you want to help by phone banking or door knocking, handshaking, having conversations, high five, smiling, anything, it makes a huge difference, because this race probably will come down to a handful of votes, and I think it's going to be awfully, awfully close. But I'm optimistic, hopeful, and most importantly, grateful. I'm having the time of my life. People look at me and they say, "How are you doing?" And I say, "I'm doing as well as I've ever done in my life." If you can get through this, you can get through anything. So, but sincerely, ask me questions. I'd love to know what do you want to hear about, and I'll answer any question.
Ronald, no, I was not in school. Okay, so I have 2 Republicans at the House and one Democrat, and I don't vote here anymore, as I mentioned, but I think they are all kind of socially liberal and fiscally conservative. So how do you appeal to that?
Well, that's exactly why. I don't like conservatism and liberalism. I think are words that we should start using less often, because they're labels that have a lot of associations. I'm fiscally responsible, and by the way, I think the Democratic Party has a grand opportunity right now to become the party of fiscal responsibility, because the party that had owned that for many, many years, which I respected, has advocated that. But very sincerely, I'm trying to. Neither party has built a tent for, I think, what I represent, the way I know I feel, which is to be fiscally responsible, socially inclusive, and independent-minded. And no party offers that, almost by definition. So I'm trying to build that tent for people. So that's exactly what I am. And I think that's why we have so many Republicans who are not just supporting this with their votes, but actually hosting events for us. Some very prominent names in this district that would surprise you. Huh? Oh, right here? Oh my goodness. In that case, the most prominent Republicans. But I mean, gotta tell you, I'm more grateful to you and to those that are doing that, because it's an act of courage to be open-minded enough to extend your hand or offer support to someone representing a party that you haven't supported in the past. And that's Arnie Carlson, Dave Durnberger. They've done the same, and they've been completely dismissed from their party in ways that's really sad, to be forthright, because they embody those conservative principles that I still honor, very deeply. And I think there's a place for both parties with those principles. Unfortunately, I think they've been abdicated. So that's who I am. That's what we're trying to build. That's what this district is. And that's why I wish there were more districts like this in the country. Because we need more competitive districts that can combine the best, if you will, of those principles. That's my hope. Yeah.
So when I was out door knocking last week, no, weekend before last, there was an elderly lady who said, I like Dean, but they're saying some really nasty things about him. And I said, well, what would you like him to say? And she said, he should just get on there and say, they're going to say nasty things about me, but you got to realize they're not true. She just wanted you to say, they're not true, and not, she said, he doesn't have to tell them, because she says, every time they come up with, every time he comes up with one thing, they're going to come up with something else. So he should just come on there and say, check it out. And they're not, she was in Minnetonka, and she was just hilarious.
Oh, I love it.
And she was,
Well, let me talk about those ads. My first ad actually was that. It was a comprehensive rebuttal after Paulson. I was as surprised as anybody that Eric Paulson, the nice guy, was cultivated this image, I think a fake one, but an image of democracy, that he would come out with an ad that is so antithetical to the image that he's trying to cultivate. And my first ad was in my coffee shop just saying, this is the first, and you're going to see more. And sadly, this is the state of affairs, and they're not true. And if I were to spend all my dollars, and by the way, we're being spent 4-1, rebutting him, I'm playing defense, I don't have the chance to express what we're trying to do, so it's complicated. But just to address all those, and you've seen them all, starting with that I don't provide health care to our employees, it's just a downright lie. WCCO has determined that, CARE 11 has determined that, and yet he continues to run those ads. We've sent a letter to Eric Paulson himself and to each of the stations, and even to the FTC, because it's time for this country to protect voters from false and misleading advertising the same way we protect consumers. And we do. The FTC has a mechanism in place by which any ad that misleads a United States consumer is flagged, taken off the air, and those who ran it are penalized. And we have nothing in politics. So I'm on a mission A to start doing that. But starting with healthcare. Every business I've ever started, managed, been part of, our family foundation, even our campaign with 12 full-time staffers, offers healthcare to full-time employees. Penny's, when I was interviewed in the very beginning, we had 3 partners, all of whom had healthcare from our outside interests. Once we hired our first full-time employee and manager, we provided a healthcare plan that others now take advantage of. We've always done so. And for part-timers, those who work under 38 hours a week, we pay a $15 minimum wage, 50% more than any coffee shop I know of in town. Plus tips, it's over 20 usually. And that's because we want to afford our employees, the part-timers, to have a chance to buy insurance on their own. So we do. That's one. He knows it. Taxes. I pay my taxes. We had an ice cream plant in Marietta, Georgia in 2012, and 13 that paid its property tax bill a little late and incurred an $89 interest charge. And then last year, I paid my, of all times to do it, I paid my Hennepin County property tax bill 5 days late because there was a fraud hold on my bank account, so I couldn't wire the money. But I paid my taxes. I think so, and I keep my family's money in offshore accounts. Not true. What they flag is actually our family foundation that has one investment in an entity that's based offshore. But as you all know, the only reason one does so is to hide money from taxes. But a family foundation, charitable foundation, isn't a taxable entity. So and I don't have one personal dollar invested in anything offshore. What else is he saying? Oh, yeah, was it another?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, I was going to just go through this litany of.
Whenever you're done answering her.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think that was, I think they believe you. What they just want you to say is, these guys are gonna lie about me. And
I'm going to take the higher, this is where this is why I'm here to ask you a favor. No matter how much I spend, no matter how many times I say it, no matter how hard I work, we are much more powerful collectively. And if you're appalled by what you see on TV, I ask you to join me in this mission now, a new mission, because of this nonsense. that we actually create a mechanism by which voters are protected so that truth is shared. And no matter how hard the truth is to hear sometimes, it can be disseminated. But bold-faced lies are really dangerous for this country, no matter who issues them, Democrats or Republicans.
And I mean,
And I intend to make that a hallmark of this campaign. And by the way, I think we're going to win this. I do. I'm optimistic. But even if we don't, I'm going to be tireless in my pursuit of trying to find a better way forward. And I mean that. And furthermore, to close this part of it, the answer, I had a choice next week to run ads that were more combating Paulson or taking a much higher road, something that would be different than any ad you see on TV right now. And I chose the latter because I want us to be remembered as the campaign that did it the right way. No matter what the outcome, and I mean that sincerely. I will not win at all costs because that is completely antithetical to the blessings of this country and to my own principles. So, but I need you, and I'm not ashamed to ask for it. I need you to help me spread that word and help rebut these lies and encourage others to take the high road. Thank you.
Okay, so, one of the issues that's kind of out there that needs more attention, and I hope we get past this, he said, no I didn't, yes I did, all that crap. Okay, so one of the issues that I think needs airing, and I don't know if you've looked into it, you can speak to it any way you want, but I just saw something, I think last week, the national debt as a percentage of GDP is the highest it's been since World War II, okay? And we're at the peak of the economic expansion. This isn't supposed to happen. We're supposed to be able to go deeper into debt when we're in the depths of a recession. So it's like we're totally out over our ski tips. So when the new Congress gets sworn in, this is going to have to be addressed sooner or later. Where are you at on that?
So I agree, and I'm both appalled and concerned, deeply concerned. Eric Paulson, as you know, has said that he considers the expanding national debt one of the greatest risks facing our country, and then helped write a tax bill and voted on it that now explodes it by the tune of $2 trillion more. And that's not sustainable. And you're right, in a period of economic expansion, that's when we should be reducing our debt and having balanced budgets so that when rainy days come, we have some room left on our credit card, which they've used up. In fact, the debt service on our national debt this next year will be $390 billion, up 50% over last year. And within 10 years, that will be $900 billion. We can print money if we want, but at the end of the day, that means that our budget will be so consumed by debt service on our national debt that there will be less and less to invest in things and programs and people around this country. So I'm terribly concerned. What I would have done on that tax bill, I would have lowered corporate tax rates. We needed to become more competitive. I wanted to repatriate dollars from overseas. That's a great stimulus to this country. But I would have done so gradually, and I wouldn't have done so as significantly, because I would have accrued more benefit to middle-income Americans. Because if we want sustainable economic growth that could actually whittle down that debt gap, if you will, over years, millions of people in this country having more money to spend is the way to do it. So I would have done that very differently. And truth be told, no one has a magic wand. Nobody can go to Congress and fix our budget and fix the debt. It's going to take years of thoughtful management. And I would argue that at the root of this is perpetual incumbency. If we have a Congress filled with people who are making decisions based on their next election, as Jeff Flake so beautifully said the other day on 60 Minutes, when asked if he could have, even that gesture of asking for a 1-week delay for an FBI investigation on Kavanaugh, they asked if he would have been able to do that if he wasn't retiring from the Senate. And his answer was crisp and clear. He said, no, never. And that's the root of the problem. We need people who are there for the right reasons, not there so long, and not there to protect their next election outcome at the expense of all of us. And I think that's why my personal focus is campaign reform and campaign finance reform, and also an end to perpetual incumbency, because it is a grave, grave concern.
Do you advocate term limits then?
I do.
Okay.
I do advocate for term limits. In fact, my first step would be reducing the money in politics, because I think that will accomplish a lot of it. We need more turnover, period. But we don't want so much turnover that we are left with staff essentially running Congress. And having institutional memory in a governance system as important as ours is important. But I would argue that 5 or maybe 6 terms in the House,
You need to
2
get
or 3
that
in the
out
Senate.
there. You need to get that out there.
You're right.
Yes.
Colorado has term limits.
A lot of states.
Yeah.
A lot of states do. Gubernatorial, legislative, and so on. And we have a presidential term limit. You know, it's constitutional.
Yeah.
So that's the root of it. And that's why this was an election year ploy to give us a sugar high, so that people would remember in 30 days how good the economy seems, much to the detriment of the next Congress and future generations. And that's the truth. But there's a way out of it. It just needs fiscal responsibility, and frankly, more Democrats and Republicans that have some business experience and know how to read P&Ls and balance sheets and understand the implications of how policy affects our national economy.
Thank you.
Yeah, PG.
In Eden Prairie, there is close to 20% non-white. And I think that's your trump card, because most
That's a
of
bad term, PG.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
Well, we aren't gonna rip on you.
Cards.
You mentioned something else.
Nice try. I think if you can reach them, there's a lot of those minority people don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can reach them, that's your, you need to go. I think. And I think all of us, same thing for Ron and I think if we can get all that minority vote, the Indians, the Chinese, the Somalis, and I don't know how many Hmong's in your district, we don't have probably that much in Eden Prairie, I don't think. That's a pretty big
Yeah, it
group
is.
of people, and I don't know
And
what
I've
you're
never been
doing.
invited. Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. You know, our campaign slogan and our ethos is everyone's invited, and we are absolutely practicing what we preach in ways big and small, in ways that you recognize and may not. And I had a wonderful experience of being hosted by the Somali community, the Pakistani community, the Indian community. Just yesterday, I went to the Nigerian. The Nigerian Independence Day barbecue with about 20 people. Went to an extraordinary Kenyan church a couple weeks ago. It was a memorable day in my campaign. I went to the Liberian Independence Day gala and joined them on the steps at our capital. I have met more extraordinary people in communities that I never knew existed, even in our backyard, which has been a blessing of huge proportions to me and our campaign. And what I've learned is that no one's ever reached out. You know, nobody's asked to get together. Nobody's broken bread, and nobody's invited. Particularly up in Brooklyn Park and up in Coon Rapids and Osseo. It's staggering how little attention has been paid. So part of my mission isn't just to win this election, it's to recognize that we're all in this together, and by affording the opportunity to new communities to participate and reminding them of the importance of doing so is really a hallmark of what we're trying to do.
Do you have any initiatives along the lines of immigration reform?
Sure. Very simply, we need comprehensive immigration reform. The fact that we are talking about this still is ridiculous, because this is not a political issue. This is just an American and human and economic issue. And conversations about sanctuary cities or states shouldn't be had right now, because we should have immigration reform. And it's an earned pathway to citizenship to anybody in this country, in my estimation, that is here to work hard, pursue an American dream, and obey our laws. If people aren't, yes, those people should be deported. But people who want that opportunity, I think we should afford them. And I say earned, it's a qualifier, an earned path to citizenship. That is how it works, it should work. I'm afraid that we don't have that, because there's a large chunk of the Republican Party that believes a lot of the new Americans would vote Democratic. And if that's at the root of this impasse, shame on all of us. We've got to find a better way. And I think there's a way forward, but it takes populating Congress with thoughtful Democrats and Republicans willing to do so. And we can. And we should stop talking and start acting. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie Crocker.
Hey, Charlie.
I just lived in Washington for the last 5 years, so bless you for wanting to go there. I'm wondering, when you get there, what your relationship with party leadership will be, and how you see that sort of change coming about. If you're going to trust Pelosi and Schumer and whatever, all the folks that have been there for far too long that also helped us get into this mess.
Do you have any Canadian roots?
I am Canadian, yeah.
Ah.
We
I won't
got
tell you
that.
how it is. I'll tell you, I think this is a little, it's like my F rating by the NRA, it's a little bit of a badge of honor. Despite being a firearms owner, the same as my relationship with the Democratic Party, if you will. I'm really appalled and disappointed by leadership in both parties. The woeful lack of principled leadership in both parties. And I think it's time for fresh leadership on both sides of the aisle. I told the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, along with the RNCC, the Republican version, they have a mechanism by which they want to command and control all these congressional races. They send the same toolkit to every one of them. They want campaigns like ours to hire guns from other parts of the country to come in, get the job done, and move on out. And I wanted to do it totally antithetically. Local people, local talent. In fact, I interviewed some of these people they recommended from around the country. And my first interview question was, how do you say W-A-Y-Z-A-T-A? And I kid you not one. Which is all I needed to know. Can you imagine a campaign manager that can't pronounce? So neither here nor there. I made it clear to them in the very beginning that I was going to do this differently. That I was going to I would make campaign finance reform my hallmark issue. They said I was crazy. They said that is a losing issue. We pulled it to the day is done. It's not what voters care about. And if you do so, we're not going to really support you. And I gotta say, look at now. Look at how that issue of ethics. Yeah, Steve, go ahead. You want to say something? Yeah.
I just want to tell you, don't ever change. And B, I just want to tell you something that happened to me yesterday that I know you're going to take it to heart. I spoke in Excelsior yesterday to Protect Minnesota crowd.
Sure.
150 people is what the Star Tribune said. And I talked about, as a teacher and as a senator, how gun violence has impacted me. I'm walking away from the rally. My daughter calls me up on the phone. I answer it. She was just released from a storage area in a grocery store in South Minneapolis. She walked in with my grandson, 9-month-old, in the carriage, and she saw two men fighting in the parking lot, and one of them pulled out a gun, and she said it was I don't know how many guns she's seen, but a big gun, according to my daughter, and there were gunshots fired, and the manager of the grocery store pulled everybody in, put them in the back of the grocery store until the situation in the parking lot had been diffused. So here I was at a demonstration talking about, as a teacher and as a senator and now as a father and a grandfather, hearing it's done. I'm just done with this issue. And so I know you will. I know you're going to hear those stories from people and you're going to take it to heart and go do your thing in Washington, D.C. and don't listen to Charlie. And you're going to be great.
But I want to finish my answer to you in that, that's one reason I'm doing this. I do believe that it takes thoughtful leaders on both sides that are there for the right reasons to get anything done. And I don't think we're populated with the right people right now. And that means both sides. And I don't mind not getting the best office or even the best committee assignment in Congress, should I have the honor of serving all of you, because I'm there to do something different, which is to speak truth and do so in a way that is principled and value-based and there to collaborate. I hope to join the Problem Solvers Caucus, 24 Democrats, 24 Republicans, doing the work that Congress should be working on together. They've got thoughtful ideas, but the power structure in the Congress refuses to even let their voices be heard. They want to change how the Speaker of the House is even elected, which would require that the Speaker generate at least 6 votes from the other side of the aisle. I support that. We can do this better. And I'll tell you, last but not least, I'm the only candidate who takes no PAC money, no special interest money, no federal lobbyist money, and no money from members of Congress, because they also use money to influence votes. They tap you on the shoulder when you get to Congress and remind you how much they sent your way, so when it comes time for leadership votes, they have you. I'll be the most independent member of Congress. I take none of their money, so I can vote out of principle, not because of my party. And I'm not there to become the majority leader or number 2 Democrat in the House. I want to get there and speak some truth and see what happens as a result, and encourage other like-minded people around the country to run campaigns like this and do it differently, and know that when they get there, there's going to be a support network that wants to make one voice into a chorus, and that's my hope.
Here.
Yeah, we have two more questions, and then I got to get through.
Energizing voters. I was reading online that Kavanaugh vote that now the progressives are just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and the conservatives have surged in energy and they're so excited. But so keeping people interested in actually going out to vote and thinking that they can make a difference. Ideas from anyone on how do you energize people and say, no, go and vote. Yes, you can make a difference. It will make a difference.
Yeah, well, I can point to a lot of elections, even in this very state, where it came down to a couple hundred people, and it does make a difference. A couple hundred people is how many people are reached during an afternoon door knock, and that's how big of a difference it makes. We've got 1,500 active volunteers, 64,000 contributors, every one of them doing something. In fact, that's my invitation to all of you. And I say this: I don't care as much about what one's political perspectives are, because I think we'll be a better country if more people simply participated. And in so doing, you meet other people. You listen to perspectives that aren't necessarily yours. And that's what's the blessing of door knocking. It teaches conservatives who knock a liberal door to listen to another perspective. And vice versa. It teaches liberals knocking a conservative door to hear and understand. And that's where participation begins. And I am excited because I do see around the country enhanced engagement. I do think the Kavanaugh hearings have re-inspired the Republican base. I think the Republican base looks very different, though, than the one that we knew 10 or 20 years ago. But nonetheless, if the outcome of the Kavanaugh hearing, the outcome of Kavanaugh's ascension, and the outcome of Donald Trump's election, if the outcome is more engagement on both sides, that is healthy. That is healthy. And I think in our district, at the end of the day, I think thoughtful people on both sides of the aisle are engaged in appropriate ways, and I do think there's more energy, certainly, amongst Democrats than there has been in a long time. And I can tell you, anecdotally, a lot of energy amongst former moderate Republicans and right-leaning independents who have in an open-minded fashion, decided that they have got to participate in a big way. And that is the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time. Yeah.
Your last question, sorry. Hi, Stephanie Boyd.
Hi,
I
Stephanie.
have signs in my yard for.
Well, thank you.
My question to you is, will you be accessible once you're there?
Oh, yes.
Town halls,
Yes.
listening to us, because I graduated high school with Eric Paul.
You did.
I haven't talked to him since. So,
You and most of the district.
but I really hope that you will take, our considerations. It's so tough there, and you get so jaded that the person you are, I hope you remain.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you, the two questions that I get that surprise me more than any as I run for Congress are, do you believe in science? And will you be accessible? Because, yes, I believe in science. And how could you possibly endeavor to run for Congress and serve in any legislative body in this country and be unwilling to stand in front of the people that sent you there and allow them to ask questions? I still, to this very moment, do not understand it. So it's funny when I have to express the fact that, yes, I'll hold open, accessible public town halls, one every 90 days in all parts of the district. Because I love it.
I tell you what he'll say. He'd say, what can't you ask me on the phone that you can ask in person? That's his
And that's
running
fine.
line.
And then vote. But the good news is voters make that decision. And by the way, his pattern is good. He said in the debate the other day that he finds it disconcerting that if he goes to a public town hall, that people are mean-spirited and vindictive and angry. And I said, well, I haven't seen that, but if that's the case, it's just as much my responsibility, and I'll be taking it from the other side. But it's my responsibility, and I want to. I love it.
But don't you think it's a difference in personality?
Sure, he's an introvert, and
yeah,
I have some degree of compassion, might be the wrong word, but empathy for him. I don't think he's a bad man. I think he's caught up by a system that eats people who lack courage up. He's beholden, and he can't get out of it now. I think we'd all agree on that. But to answer your question, yes, I'll have open town halls, publicly announced, no tickets, in big venues that anybody can come to and anybody can ask questions. Secondly, I've seen during this year and a half I've been doing this that there's an appetite and a need for voters and all of us to be better educated on issues. So I've been hosting a series of public forums, one on healthcare, one on climate change and the environment, one on campaign finance reform, and I'll be holding one more on gun violence prevention here in a couple weeks. Because I want the best and the brightest in our community and around the country to come in and share ideas. And at every one of these panels, there will be a conservative at the table and a liberal perspective, so that we hear from all sides. And in so doing, we might actually bring people together apolitically to at least understand the issues from which we can take that truth and have thoughtful debate. So I love being accessible. And I'll close by the third point, is in a day and age where technology can be used to engage people in ways we never imagined possible, there are better ways to do it. And I want to have the best constituent services program of the entire 435 members of Congress. And I'm going to make another funny commitment to you right now. I will answer the phones in my congressional office in Washington for at least 30 minutes a week, so that I hear at least from a handful of people who call that switchboard and expect to get a voicemail or a junior staffer, and I will be there. And I'm going to make a point on my calendar at least 30 minutes a week to staff the phones, because that's how we should do this. And not only is that not menial, that is the most important role of a member of Congress. So that's my commitment. So I want to say thanks, most of all. I hope you keep smiling. I hope you keep working. I hope you keep having conversations. And for those who see things differently, and that's not a bad thing, I hope we listen. I want to become a nation of listeners, a more compassionate nation. We can't legislate love and decency and collegiality, but we can send people to Washington that share those values. And I would love to be your messenger and your representative. And I want to show that this can be fun. And that's what the ethos of this campaign is. So if any of you have any anxiety that you want to convert to optimism, come along. We have room on our bus, even though my campaign truck, my government repair truck, is in the repair shop. It will be fixed on Tuesday, and we're going to have some wonderful events forthcoming. We're going to have an extraordinary election night gathering, because I want young people and older people and all people to come and have a night that they will remember, no matter what the outcome of the election, because I am on a mission to get us back together. So thank you for doing so, Kelley. Thank you, PG. Thank you, Steve. Who else did? And Ron. Where's Ron? And Ron. Thanks for what you're doing. We're all one big family, and as much as I hope you become part of ours, I hope you invite me into yours too. So thank you very much.
Comb your hair, will you, man?
This is great. Okay.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. That's one of the lessons I learned in candidate school.
Very nice.
Yeah. I am so big. Thank you. Very much.
Oh, yeah, let me get one of you.
No, I'll just give it. Okay.
I have my shoes on, so I look even shorter.
Yeah.